Hello and welcome to Banfield. We begin tonight with the wild and revealing interview that just happened on NewsNation. Chris Cuomo was joined by the artist formerly known as Kanye West. Kanye was driving in his car during the entire interview on his way to meet with the CEO of Parler, he said. That's the social media company that the rapper says he plans to buy. In a heated exchange, Chris asked him about his recent anti-Semitic rants, why he changed his name to Ye, and if he's taking care of his health.
You guys are supposed to be made aware to use my legal name, Ye. I've changed my name like how Cassius Clay changed his name to Muhammad Ali. I'm sure you guys didn't mean it as any disrespect, but at least on the Chiron, changed my name to Ye. You can say formerly known as Kanye West if you'd like to, but my name is Ye.
I'm joined now by NewsNation's Chris Cuomo. And Chris, that was about as calm as the interview seemed. Take me through how this all happened and what you got out of Ye.
Well, that was a lot, that interview. And I'll tell you, Ashleigh, sometimes things don't make sense in the moment. I'm not a hater of Kanye West, formerly known as Kanye West. I certainly didn't mean to disrespect his name. I didn't even know he had changed his name. My concern is that two things can be true at the same time, okay? The description of the music business or of any business as being manipulated and controlled by a particular faith is a trope that needs to die. You can have bad dealings with people, but some never means all. You know that. I know that. And I think it's time for us not to just fan the flames of these situations, but to create a line of decency. There's certain things you have a right to say, and hate speech or not, you know, as we both know, it's a very vague aspect that's barely present in law. But just because you have the right to say it doesn't mean it's right to say it. And you can say ugly, demonstrably false, and hurtful things and be struggling in a way that may be motivating some of that. Now, our colleague, Dan Abrams, believes this is an act, that Ye just wants to create a conservative brand. I don't see it that way, but even if that were the case, two things can be true at the same time. He can be being intentionally provocative, or speaking truth as he believes it. I don't accept it as such, even if this is his own personal experience. It's certainly not true overall. And there is a struggle there that needs to be attended to by his own admission and those around him. I've been diagnosed bipolar. Sometimes I take my meds. It's not a sometimes situation. I take an antidepressant every day because that's the only way it works. And that matters. And, well, you're going to call me crazy. We got to stop that. That mattered more to me than anything in the interview, to be honest. I know it's all over the place right now, and that's fine that it resonates and people draw from it what they will. But I'm more worried about the fact that he's more concerned about being called crazy than he is about being held to account for what's coming out of his mouth about Jewish people and others.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a problem. And again, I'm not a hater. I have tremendous respect for his talent. His music is in my truck and in my house way too often. I talked to him afterwards. He was appreciative of the interview and the platform. So the idea that this was a brawl or whatever, it's just not true. He appreciated the opportunity, and I, would like to speak to him more about this. It doesn't have to be on TV, but he's a very important person in our entertainment world. He's been made important in our political world, largely by the right, because they love how he antagonizes the left as a man of color. And I just hope he gets that.
So, Chris, I want to play for our audience one of the clips about his recent comments he's made that have been considered widely anti-Semitic. It's had the Anti-Defamation League extraordinarily upset and speaking out about what Kanye is saying and the damage that it can do to real people and real institutions. So this was how and I'll just warn our audience, it's a little crazy, this interview. He's driving as he's speaking to you, and at the same time is pretty combative. But here's what he had to say about his recent comments that were anti-Semitic. Take a look.
Couldn't it also be that you have said things that offend the community guidelines, like anti-Semitic comments and things that are seen as insensitive and potentially threatening to communities that we try to protect?
Quote now.
Well, I don't like the term anti-Semitic. It's been a term that's allowed people, specifically in my industry, to get away with murder sometimes, literally, and get away with robbing and doing bad people. People always say, I got screwed on a deal. Would that become as a surprise to you if I said, hey, a music exec screwed someone on a deal? Does that sound kind of like normal, commonplace to you? So for me,
it doesn't have anything to do with being anti-Semitic unless you believe that all record producers are Jewish, or it's when you talk about Jewish people specifically as targeting them that creates a problem.
It's anti-Semitic, but I don't believe in that term. One thing is, Black people are also Jew. I classify as Jew also, so I actually can't be an anti-Semite. So the term is actually, it's not factual. But
I understand you think that, but I don't think that's a common understanding.
So, Chris, I don't know that we got to the heart. I certainly wasn't backtracking on any of his past comments. And I know that you were asking him about his health, whether he is actually taking care of his health, because he gets very frustrated if anyone suggests, and his ex-wife has, that he has any problems with his mental health.
Well, he's disgusted himself. And look, I don't know him, and I understand why that's uncomfortable. But it's his choice to do these things in public, right? And you have to take opportunity where you find it. And again, I think this is really important for people, especially in our gotcha social media culture that we have right now, which is not reality, but we magnify it like it is. There's this hypersensitivity to finding reasons to attack, okay? I understand why this young man feels that he is under attack. He is under attack, and for good reason, because he is saying things that he is obviously intelligent and sophisticated enough to know don't make sense, are malignant, and are bigoted. And the fact that he can conflate the idea that you shouldn't be surprised that I say record producers have done wrong by people, specifically people of color, and that therefore it's okay to talk about Jews. The conflation of those two things is not about his intelligence. So then what is it about? Oh, well, he wants to do that. He wants to be anti-Semitic to drive a brand, and that's why he's buying Parler. I don't accept that. I don't see that level of connivance of that kind of being diabolical. I think it's something else, which is that he is not aware of how his words are hitting. And that takes me to a place of what you referred to, that those around him, he himself, his ex-wife, who's the mother of his kids, have all expressed the same concern. I'm not making it up because it's the only explanation for what he says. Two things can be true at once. Frankly, anti-Semitism isn't new, and it's not going to go away. And we have to fight against it every chance we can, because that's decency, that's America. But ignoring mental illness and calling it all crazy and that meaning something to us has to stop, because it's why people won't get help. It's why they see it as making them less than. And I absolutely think it has something to do with this circus that now I'm a part of.
And just quickly, I think he was making some news tonight, Chris, with the mention that he was actually driving his car on his way to Parler, to the offices. Did he clarify whether he's actually in that deal?
I got to tell you something. One reason that you're better at the job than I am, I didn't even realize he was driving. I thought he was just looking out the window, and I didn't even get that, to be honest. I was so kind of shocked by the shot when I saw it. I was like, oh, man, I hope people can even make out who he is. He had a hoodie on and a hat. And I wasn't paying attention to that. So, look, that wasn't a great move either, to be on video while you're driving. Look, what do I want people to take from it? Two things can be true at once. I absolutely believe he's been politically weaponized, and that's not to divorce him from responsibility for his own words. I obviously went after him for what he said, and I hold him accountable for that. There's no question. But there's a reason that it's the right that's pushing this out, because of how it antagonizes the left. And, you know, I do think that it's something we have to look at in what we're doing in our politics. And, oh, so this guy can't control himself, he's just a pawn? I'm not saying that either. Again, you know, it's not a tweet. You know, things can be subtle, things can be layered, things can be complicated. And it's not a coincidence that the right keeps throwing him in the face of the left, because they like how he is antagonizing them, and they're making him a free speech agent, and that's not what he is. Nobody questions his being on our air. This is the last place that would give an audience to the absurd. Him having the right is obvious. What he's saying being not right is equally obvious. And the question becomes, what do we do about it? I believe we call it out. Why is he saying it? I believe there's going to be mixed motives, and I think part of it is not being in complete control of himself.
Yeah, we'll be watching as well to find out if he actually does execute that purchase of Parler, being that he's banned from the other social media platforms where he's been making these comments.
He's got tons of money. So, he's got tons of reach. He's incredibly relevant. I totally understand. I read a piece today. Do people still want to be in the Kanye business? Well, why are you making it a headline in your piece? That's exactly why they want to be in business with him. He's got tremendous cachet and draw. I'm just saying I care about whether or not somebody's taking care of themselves. And that is my interest in it. I'm not a hater. I'm not against him. It's not my place to be. It doesn't matter how I feel. But I'm open to the conversation. I'm always a call away. And it's an issue that matters to me tremendously in my personal life. And it's something I spend a lot of time with people, helping myself and helping others. And if I can be of help to him, he matters, and I'm here.
Well, it was a great interview. It was extremely telling, and there's a lot of follow-up that we're going to have to do, especially on that Parler deal he seems to be driving to as we speak. So thank you for that, Chris, and thanks for jumping on the show with me to talk about it. Really appreciate it. Great job.
I appreciate the opportunity. It's good to be with you. Thank
you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider, and don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.